Hey, this is Drake here again. I decided to make a video on Elden Ring comparing all of the blood builds, which blood is a very strong stat in Elden Ring, but some enemies just don't take it, and some builds are easier to come by than others. And I hadn't really seen a video comparing them. Everyone says that this is the best blood build, but I haven't seen them actually directly compare them. So this is a video to do just that. Alright, for the sake of the video, my stats are maxed. Arcane is max, which determines your amount of blood build. And for the first few builds here, they will scale to strength, dex, and arcane. So on the build I have maxed out strength, dex, and arcane to get the maximum amount of damage output from the weapons. Now this is a very late game build. As you can see, I'm level 402, so you can't really expect to get this at the beginning of the game, but this build you can. These two katanas you can get first playthrough very early, and there's videos online that detail how to do that, so I'm not going to go into detail on how to find any weapons, just which build you can get first playthrough, second playthrough, and so forth and so on. Alright, this is the blood Kiba, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. Anyway, you see it does 115 blood loss. And I've got Bloody Slash on it. Of course, you can get Seppuku, which does a bit more, but you know, it only lasts for like a minute, so short-lived, but really high damage output. And the other one is the Blood Ujitana, however I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. And it's one level higher, which is 117 blood loss, which this would be the same, but I don't have an Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone to max this one out at the moment. But you can get this fairly early. You can get this build before you ever even defeat Godric for the first time. And alright, for talisman, these are late game talismans, so most of the time you won't have these at the beginning. But Lord of Blood Exaltation is a must-have on all bleed builds, ups your damage. But I'm going by other people's quotes, so don't quote me on it, but they say 20%. And Rotted Wing Sword Insignia for successive attacks, which you do on most dual builds. And I've heard 20 to 30% online, but you know, it's very good. And other I'm running is Claw Talisman, which you can get early, but that just gives you 15 to 20% I think on jump attacks. And for my last one I have Dragon Crest Great Shield, which enormously boosts physical damage negation, which you can't get till really late game. It's in the Halig Tree area, but this is pretty good late game setup. And for my crash test dummies here, I like to use this guy just because he's big enough he don't die in one attack, but he does take blood loss very well. So here's this build. As you can see, one full combo kills him. That's not bad, you know. 89.71 for a full combo. Really good damage output. Alright, now a little later in the game, you can change it up a bit once you get the Rivers of Blood Katana and get it maxed out. Then you can change your build a little bit. And this is what I beat the game first playthrough with, was this setup right here, which is the Rivers of Blood maxed and the Uji Katana maxed dual wielding. Now for the Rivers of Blood, it has a Corpse Piler skill. So for me, I would like to swap this one out for Alexander's Great Shard, which gives you a 15% increase on weapon skill damage. And of course that's pretty late game till you get that in Crumbling Fern Azula, which I'm sure I probably said everything wrong on this, but bear with me. Again, this is the L2 ability. This is the Corpse Piler. And you get 6,600 from one combo. Very respectable. Of course, there again, you have enemies that don't take blood loss. That kind of changes things up a bit, and if you're basing most of your damage output from receiving blood loss, that kind of, you know, some of these builds don't do this well. Alright, the next one, and I think personally the one that puts out the most bleed output, is this build, the Godskin Peeler. Of course, this you will only be able to get in after New Game Plus, because you only get these from killing one of the Godskin Apostles, and it's only 1 drop per playthrough. But as you can see, the bleed buildup is 143 a piece on these. And we're going to change this back to jump attack, because with this particular setup you have a 6-hit combo per jump attack, which really applies bleed buildup. So any enemy that is weak to bleed, this will absolutely wreck. As you can see, every jump attack applies bleed on your enemy. So if they're weak to bleed, this one right here is one of the best, but that's New Game Plus only to get that one, basically. Now, another one that you could potentially get on your first playthrough, and it's really good too, is a curved sword set. Of course, I've got the Beastman's Blood curved sword here. They really do 117 bleed damage piece, and there's some other videos about farming spots where you can get other curved swords earlier. These are in Crumbling Fire and Missoula, but I just had a couple of these, so I served as my bleed build. And also they do the same 6-hit combo, and I do like on these, the running attack is a 6-hit combo also. Same setup with these. The thing I don't like about these is they're very close range and kind of easy to miss your target, but as far as that goes, they don't consume near the stamina to use, and they do almost the same amount of bleed output as the Godskin Peeler. So if you're looking for straight up bleed damage, these two are probably top tier for output. You just really can't beat them. Now there is another option, and now I don't claim credit for, I saw most of these on other videos. A few of them I've put together myself, but I'm sure they're somewhere out here. We've got another set of Beastman Blood Cleavers here that do 143 blood buildup a piece, and you get a little more physical damage out of them than you do the others, and they have work better on enemies because they have a higher stagger rate. As you can see, blood hits not every 2 hits, but most 2 hits, and you see it does 2,500 damage to him without bleed hitting. So very respectable. Alright, the other build, and some of these may put me overweight because some of them are very heavy. If I can find it. Alright, here's the Knight Crate Sword, which I saw on a video that they were saying was putting out 6,000 damage. So I had to put it on to the test, and I just couldn't get that amount of output out of it. But we'll pick it, go down to something that's got a blood affinity on it, and see, we'll just do Bloody Slash on it. Blood Occult. 140, it would do 143 if it was maxed out. Oh, sorry, I did the wrong one. What they were running was the Lion's Claw ability on it. Neat thing on Elden Ring, even if, see, that's not a blood affinity, but if it doesn't put some sort of other affinity on it, you can just pick blood affinity. You get the same output, and you get to pick which special you want. Alright, now this build was synced, so you could potentially get this one first playthrough, and it's dual wielding and just L2 for the special ability, and that's the Lion's Claw ability. I'm sure most people have probably seen videos on it, and this is it here. One really good thing about that is it does tend to break enemies. It does respectable damage with my blood loss talisman kicking in. It does 2387 for one hit. This is very good, and you could do this build first playthrough, and it has a very high break rate on it, which I really like, and it does, that attack does wonders on Millennia, the goddess of rot, because it will knock her to the ground every time you hit her with it. So you could, as long as you don't run out of stamina, you could just sit there and spam it until she's dead. Now in her second phase, it does not knock her down, so beware on that one. The other one I put together was this great sword, which is a Colossal sword, and I'll have to swap my Ashes of War around again. But we're going to do the same one. We're going to do the Lion's Claw again. Put it on there, and we're going to pick blood affinity. Now if you're going for raw damage, you can do a little, better. Like quality does more, but we're looking for bleed, so we'll put bleed on there, which it does 172 bleed buildup, which is pretty insane. And now we'll dual wield it. And this is our Lion's Claw. And that does 2378 without blood loss hitting. 2854 after our bleed has procced. Very, very respectable damage on that. Now the other one you could do, and it potentially could do first run through, but it would require a lot of leveling up in strength. And one of my favorite builds, if I can find it, is the Bloody Giant Crusher. Now it does weigh 26.5 pounds, and it requires a whopping 60 in strength to build it, or to be able to wield it. And I'll show you on this one. It works the same as the other. Now when you go into your Ashes of War for this hammer, you cannot pick a bleed for this hammer, but you gotta do, and I picked Lion's Claw again on this one. Down there and pick blood, and you get your 172 blood buildup, which is insane to have a hammer this size doing this much physical damage. Of course you can see it's putting out 918 straight up raw damage. And this is with the Lion's Claw ability. You see 2380 blood hit, and we broke him. Now 2856, 2380, but the amount of stagger damage is crazy with this build. And on a plus note for this, it seems that all your enemies that are made of stone take increased damage from blunt weapons. So your gargoyles that don't take blood loss, and your crystal enemies that wield the spears that take reduced damage from everything else do not take reduced damage from this hammer. So that is very, very good. Now for the other build and my favorite blood build. You have to bear with me. I prefer not to cut my videos. Just leave them how they are. We'll travel here. We'll have to respec to get our weight capacity up to the point where we can dual wield some of the colossal weapons. And if you're not familiar with this, this is Renala, the full moon queen, and once you beat her, you'll be able to do rebirth, which takes a larval tier. This allows you to respec. On the specs, I like to keep the vigor at 60 is when you hit the soft cap. You can see from what I started out with 10, you know, it goes from 4 to 14. It scales up pretty fast. 1900. Now from 60 all the way up to max, you only gain another 200 in life. So to me, another 39 upgrades really isn't that good. If you need more life, you can equip something like the Erd Tree Talisman that'll give you an extra 100 or so in life. Really, I mean, if you're looking for max, that's good, but I wouldn't go above 60. Now for this, we're going to keep our arcane at 94. And of course, I'm using Godric's Great Rune to make it max out, which is important to note. Great Runes do not carry over into co-op play or PvP, so you lose that, you know, those 5 upgrades in every set when you do multiplayer. Okay, on this one, you don't have to go max, but I had it at max. We're going to do our endurance to max on it, so we got enough weight to carry without having to have a weight upping talisman. Alright, and one more thing I noticed is strength really puts your physical defense up a lot. So investing in a strength, you know, it has multiple perks. Okay, that's what we're going to rescale to.
Thou art now assume my thanks.
We'll travel back to our testing ground, which I like to use this one enemy just because he's always there and he doesn't die with one hit, and he does take blood loss very well. Now these other 2 builds will be definitely New Game Plus, because you can only get one, as far as I know, you can only get one of these weapons per playthrough. And this build will be dual Colossal Great Swords. And we'll put the blood affinity on them in just a second. There again, it doesn't show a blood one. Just pick one. You can't do it on Holy, doesn't give you blood. You can do it on Poison, but you can't do it on Frost. But we're going to pick the Lion's Claw. Go with blood to get our 172 bleed build. We're going to pick the other Lion's Claw I have here. Apply it. Basically, the only change to the talismans is you don't really get successive hits enough to proc this very often. So I kind of like to use the Shard of Alexander, because we do have our Lion's Claw ability in there. So we're getting extra 15% damage with it. Now, every jump attack will proc bleed if you can connect. As you can see, you get 3,800 damage from one jump attack on the big guy. Of course, he's not armored, so he takes a bit more physical damage. And the Lion's Claw ability will be the same amount of damage output as before. It will not increase any. Alright, but my personal favorite by far is the dual Giant Crusher build. One, because it looks really cool, and two, it just wrecks almost anything. Even enemies that are holding up their shield, you can still just annihilate them even with their shield held up most of the time. You have to forgive me, I don't have enough Ashes of War. We'll have to put this back together. But there again, we're just going to pick our Lion's Claw. We're going to pick Blood. Now we have our 172, and it actually puts our strength scaling up to an A, and it actually puts our damage up too. So you can see on these, on this build, oops, wrong one. We've got 918 damage output on both weapons. Now bleed hit. Now you can do your Lion's Claw. Break them. And you get 3284 from one single hit. And that attack actually does, you know, not to put any spoilers in here, but Radagon and Elden Beast did not take blood loss. So your bleed builds are very ineffective against them. But that particular hammer, maxed out with the Lion's Claw on it, will do over 4,000 damage each hit to Elden Beast, which is the best I've seen by far on any attack. Any physical attack. There might be some spells that do better. Alright, one other honorable mention, and I forgot to do it before I reset my stats here. We're going to do it anyway, is the dual Rivers of Blood build. Which is very good, even after they nerfed it. Now for this, still got our Shard of Alexander, but we can do our Fire Scorpion Charm, which lowers our damage negation, but you know, if you're looking for just damage output, it raises our fire attack, and these have fire attack on them, so that's another buff that you can get on this set. And then if you really wanted to just go for straight up damage output, you could do the Rotted Wing Insignia, and that's 4 damage buffs. Now this will only apply to the Corpse Piler skill, but you're running all damage buffs on this setup. So dual wielding. You don't get the bleed procs quite as quickly, but against something that doesn't take bleed, it's very, very good. A lot of physical damage, and you can get it pretty easily on second playthrough, and it doesn't really take a lot of stats to wield it and be very effective at it. So I think that is just about it. That's every bleed build that I've tried. I'm sure there's more out there. There possibly could be some better, but that's them compared directly. No gimmicks, tried against the exact same enemy with basically the same stats and optimize as much as possible. No spells, no incantations, no buffs that only last 30 seconds. I mean, that's a build that you can run consistently and use on every enemy. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much.